What scares you? Ghosts, knives? How about trucks? Before Jurassic Park, before Jaws, before Steven Spielberg was a known name to the world, he directed his first feature film for Hollywood. It was a movie called Duel. Since it was originally a made-for-TV film released before Spielberg was a recognizable name, the film has seemingly been overlooked by many people while becoming a classic for others. But if you haven't seen Duel, I'm here to tell you why you absolutely need to. Written by Richard Matheson, writer of some of the most famous episodes of The Twilight Zone, it's a movie that combines the best in simple suspense with the amazing camera work of Spielberg that would eventually make Jaws such a success. It's not a movie to be missed. Before we get started, if you like this video, please subscribe to my channel. In addition to videos like this, I also upload shorts and create my own short films. And since we're on the topic of horror films, my new horror short film, The Purple Hand, will be premiering on YouTube soon, so subscribe for that. And if you enjoy all of my content, you can also support me on Patreon, as my first patron, Dakari, has already done. But now let's get into the rest of the video. Duel is a simple story. We follow an everyman, literally named David Mann, on his way to an appointment. He's driving along until he comes across an old, dirty, loud truck that won't let him pass.
Quite frankly, I've adopted most
Talk about pollution.
The truck driver, who is never seen, starts toying with the guy, nearly getting him killed by ushering him into an oncoming truck. It soon becomes clear to our everyman that the truck driver is out to kill him.
That truck driver tried to kill me.
Duel was based on the writer's own uncomfortable experience on the highway. It would have been easy to write off this premise as something silly. Truck's scary, are you serious? But the movie demonstrates how execution is everything. First, we're given our everyday, relatable character. We follow him right from when he leaves his house and gets to experience the everyday traffic with him. Everything in this film is told and shot from the perspective of this guy, grounding us in his shoes. We can see the insecurity from his personal life, setting him up as a bit of a pushover already.
You're the boss. Not in my house, I'm not.
So we can already see how the prospect of having a serial killer after him is going to affect him. The serial killer himself is not made out to be a man. Oh, it's clear that there's a driver in the truck, but we never actually see him. We see a boot or an arm once, but we aren't ever given a face to this guy. All we ever see is the truck. This creates a certain mystique around the truck that makes it feel supernatural and even more unsettling. However, Spielberg did leave one clue as to the whereabouts of this truck and driver, and it's my favorite detail of the film. In certain shots of the movie, you can see the license plates from across the country pinned to the car, indicating that this is a serial killer who crushes random cars and their drivers for sport. The truck is given a face of his own. The model was picked out specifically so that it would be older, more muddy, making it look ugly and less familiar. It was also picked out specifically because it was a truck that looked like it had eyes and a snout. All this makes the truck, of all things, a menacing presence throughout the film. It's like a monster that keeps stalking you, but you still don't know for sure what it's all about. You do know it's huge and could crush you in an instant, and it wants to. Hey! Hey! It's always there wherever you go. The truck is the villain of the film, and the viewer dreads whenever that thing shows up. In addition to setting up the fear of the movie, Duel makes sure we never get bored with a repetitive conflict, upping the tension and changing up the peril in each scene. We get the initial strange behavior from the truck driver, culminating in the first attempted murder. Then we get a break from the chase and a scene that heightens the anxiety further as David Mann questions whether or not he's sure that the driver was trying to kill him. It's tense to watch him try to discover who the driver really is, just by staring at the boots of the people in the cafe. The movie creates doubt in the main character and therefore the viewer, at certain points when it seems like the driver will leave him alone. Maybe the truck driver isn't dangerous after all. But then, bam! Just when we're somewhat relaxed and back on the road again, we get a shocking and sudden scene of the truck right behind Mann trying to push him into an oncoming train. It's a scene that is both exciting and nerve-wracking because it uses familiar settings. We can imagine it could happen to any of us. Now the driver is solidified as a killer, and all we can do is root for our protagonist to escape. Meanwhile, the writing and direction continue to make different and grounded scenarios that keep the energy going. But none of this movie would have worked if it wasn't for one crucial thing: the cinematography. When Spielberg signed on for the film, remember, it was supposed to be a made-for-TV movie. Spielberg was given only 10 days to shoot the thing. As such, the studio wanted all of the driving scenes to be done with a blue screen and an actor pretending to drive in front of it. Spielberg knew better, though. Driving scenes with blue screen have a fakeness to them, and I could say the same thing about driving scenes today that use green screen and CGI. Spielberg did the seemingly impossible task of shooting everything on location with stunt drivers to ensure that everything would feel real. By always positioning the cameras low to the ground or with a view of passing land right beside the cars, Spielberg made it look like the cars were always rushing at top speed, even though they were actually going steadily. He knew that the ground would appear to pass by much more quickly through the lens of the camera, which is why he always had the ground or a hill beside the car visible for perspective. It's the fact that all of this is shot on location that makes it feel real and once again puts you in the shoes of the driver. If the movie had been done with blue screens, it would have completely fallen apart. Spielberg managed to make it all work despite going 2 days over schedule. But even the most minimal scenes are made much better with Spielberg's cinematography. A simple scene of talking on the phone is done through someone opening a washing machine to give it some depth and action. A short shot of David Mann looking over his shoulder at the feet of the truck driver is done with a slow panning of the camera to give the feeling of growing tension. Something is wrong. Every action and emotion of the script is conveyed perfectly through the camera work, making sure this film was intense and interesting from the beginning to end. Is there anything that doesn't work in the movie? Well, for me, there's 2 things. The studio was so impressed with Duel that it gave it a theatrical release in some areas. As such, Spielberg had to lengthen it to be movie length. The first scene was of David Mann calling his wife he's been arguing with, which works with the film as it helps to establish him as a bit of a pushover. The second scene, however, is of David Mann helping the school bus get unstuck before the truck comes back. It feels jarringly out of place for the film, and Mann's relaxed demeanor at the beginning of the scene does not add up with how he was from the last scene. It also creates some confusion as to the motivations of the truck because we see it help the school bus in the end. I guess you could say maybe it wanted to cover its tracks so that people wouldn't catch on to what it was actually doing. It's also a good question to ask, why didn't David Mann just turn around and go back the other way to escape this truck that's been stalking him? But I don't know, maybe he just didn't want to go back to his wife.
Well, just be on time, okay?
All right. Okay, I'll be there.
Apart from that, though, I still don't think that those flaws take down this incredibly entertaining film. Shot in only 12 days with a TV movie budget, Duel is a shining example of how writing and execution can elevate any movie and make the most simple of stories or silliest of premises exciting. It's great to watch David Mann go on his arc of panic, meeting the usual NPCs of horror projects who don't take his warnings seriously, and the eventual big duel showdown that the movie is all about, which might lead to David Mann acting a little insane himself. Duel is not a movie to overlook. Just because it was produced before Spielberg's blockbuster days doesn't mean it isn't the director in his prime. It's a perfect short thriller film that'll have you staring at trucks nervously next time you go out on the road.